Hello guys, a lot of you are interested in Brexit and what's been going on, and what might surprise you is what has been going on regarding our Prime Minister going out of his way to bypass the law. No, you did not hear that wrongly. Our Prime Minister going out of his way to bypass the law on Brexit. You might think, what am I talking about? Okay, a few weeks ago Parliament passed a law saying that the government could not leave the EU without a deal, without asking the EU for an extension. Now, this was something that Boris Johnson didn't want. It was something that Boris Johnson's government didn't want, but because there were more opposition MPs than MPs that were in the same party as the government, it meant that essentially a law got passed which the government didn't want or even agree with. Okay, so how did they get around this? Well, the law stated that Boris Johnson and or the government had to send a letter to the EU requesting a delay till January if certain conditions weren't met. Okay, and if Boris refused to do so, he could go to prison in theory for it. So was Boris willing to go to prison so that people could leave the EU by the end of October? Well, Boris, people misunderstood, is in fact a comedian. Okay, at heart, in my opinion, is a comedian first and a politician second. And he thought he'd found a way around this. Now, what he did is completely unstatesmanlike, and it's the sort of thing Donald Trump would probably do, but it's not the sort of thing that a very conservative, even though he is a member of the Conservative Party, but a very conservative person and a respectable person might do. For example, it's not the sort of thing I think Theresa would do. It's just wasn't Theresa's style. Theresa May was fairly boring, respectable, and formal. Okay, whether you agreed with her policies or not, or thought she did anything, is another matter. But generally, she was somebody who believed in doing things by the book, not trying to cheat the system or whatever. Right? So Boris has found a way round this. He was told that he got to send a letter to the EU. So he sent a letter, but he refused to sign it. So it's a letter with no signature on it whatsoever. Right? The law didn't state that the letter had to actually be signed, only that it had to be sent. So he sent a letter which wasn't actually signed. Then he sent another letter at the same time, saying that he disagreed with the sentiments of the other letter, and that he essentially, I think, giving the impression that he only sent the other letter because he legally had to. Okay, but then basically undermining the letter completely, saying that he didn't think a delay would be good for Britain, he didn't think it would be good for anybody, and that he would rather people just leave when he said they would leave. Okay, but he'd basically sent the letter to the EU without signing it, but he signed the one saying he didn't think it would be a good idea to have a delay. Okay. Furthermore, I believe it's a civil servant sent a note to explain that the letter had been sent purely to meet legal requirements within the UK. The impression being, don't take this seriously, we don't believe it, we're just being told we just don't want to go to prison. So Boris Johnson, being a comedian, found a way of basically poking fun at the law. He was told he had to send a letter requesting this, but he's done so by not signing it, and then sending another letter at the same time saying he didn't even believe in it, which really wasn't probably in the spirit of the law when it was created, but you have to admire his audacity in doing this. I don't think many statesman-like people would do such a thing. to be very honest. So that's basically how Boris has poked fun at the law and has basically got around it. Okay. Was it the right thing to do? I don't know. It does open up, questions where they did say in Parliament that they didn't want to have a debate as to whether they thought he would obey the law or not. Their viewers will see if he obeys the law, and if he doesn't, we'll just put him in prison. That was generally the view, or something along those lines. Right? And they were seriously debating putting him in prison if he didn't actually do it. Right? So he's sort of done it, but found a way round it. But the question is, surely this opens a can of worms for the future? Because generally the view was that politicians would be not only follow the law, but follow what was generally the spirit of the law, and if they didn't, then they could face criminal, penalties, That was a general understanding in the past, where if there was a law, they were expected to obey it, and if they didn't, then they could go to prison or be punished in some other way and be seen as a criminal. Boris has completely taken the mickey out of the law, saying, I followed it, but I've done it in such a way that it's just not in the spirit of the law, it's not what was meant by the law, and I've just poked fun at the law, and legally you guys can't do anything about it. Many think this is the sort of behaviour that you would expect from a child of 10 years old, not the sort of thing you'd expect of a grown adult. But is it good for, or was it because he felt he was being pressured into doing something that he didn't believe in, when he felt he had the public on his side because he campaigned for Brexit, even though David Cameron thinks he doesn't really believe in it, and he only supported Brexit because Boris thought he'd become Prime Minister one day if he did. There's a debate about that. Was Boris sincere about it? David Cameron doesn't think so. Boris claims he was. That's another issue. But it does perhaps open, the debate of, should politicians be seen to be following the spirit of the law as well as the letter of the law, or should they be allowed to abuse laws and manipulate them in ways that were not really intended? And so that is opened up a new can of worms as to, this kind of thing. So that's partly what's going on. Also, there was meant to be a debate in Parliament about Brexit. That's now not going to happen until Monday, if it happens at all, because another politician who basically wanted to interfere, called Oliver Letwin, decided, it was ironically in the same party as Boris, wanted to scupper Boris's plans of doing this by bringing out a new law which would say that Brexit could not happen until Parliament had agreed it could happen. Whereas Boris originally said, I want it to end on the 31st of October, and that's that. And he was originally nominated. It was chosen by the Conservative Party to be the Prime Minister. It wasn't chosen by the public. It was chosen by his party. Okay, on the basis that he promised people would come out on the 31st of October, no matter what. But this other guy seems to have scuppered that as well. So Boris is going to try and find, I think, some equally abusive way around this as well. So it will be interesting. There's meant to be, I believe, a debate on Monday, but they're not sure if it can go ahead or not, because the view was there wasn't a need for debate because this other law, which was passed, would override the need for Boris's a debate on Boris's new withdrawal agreement, but not because it means it will automatically get passed or that there's a treaty with the EU would come into force, but simply it just meant that the overriding fact was it now will be delayed while Parliament decides in its own time whether to accept it or not, and scrutinise it in their own way rather than just in the way it was originally intended to be, which was just a debate for all day on Saturday, and that would be that. In fact, Parliament was brought back specially on Saturday just to debate this, but this rebellious politician decided to scupper it all and stop the whole thing being debated, and nobody really knows what's going on now. It's getting weirder and weirder. Okay, but the point is, what many don't understand is that there can only be a delay to Brexit if the EU also agrees to a delay to Brexit, and the EU have agreed to several delays, but they've had enough as well. So basically Boris is trying to convince the EU to not accept a delay. So he's saying, even if I'm asking for one, I'm doing so because I'm being told I have to, but I don't want you to give me one. So if the EU say, no, you're not having any more extensions, that's it, then the British can't do anything about it, the government can't do anything about it, no British politician can do anything about it, because at the moment, while we're still in the EU, EU law overrides UK law. And therefore, if the EU say you can't have an extension, that is the end of it, legally, because EU law supersedes UK law until we actually leave. Right? Which is another loophole that Boris and the team have discovered. Try and let Parliament do what it likes, but try and ask the EU nicely to turn them down. So this is what's going on in Brexit land. Okay? Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.